Welcome to the Successful Life Podcast. I am your host, Corey Barrier, and I am here with Kate. And I'm going to let her pronounce her last name because it's so difficult.
It's Cretsinger. I love it.
There you go.
Thank you.
Kate, how are you today? Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Corey. It's a pleasure. And I'm doing great. Thank you. Every day is great, especially with everything that's going on. I mean, I look at this stuff. We're in the midst of the COVID-19, with all of this while we're recording. And I look at it as a positive thing. We're forced to spend time with families. We're forced to do the things that we've been putting off, and we can't use that as an excuse anymore. So we're here. Let's get it done. So I look at it as a positive thing.
I agree with you. And
I get to talk to you like this.
Yeah, absolutely. We may not have connected if it hadn't been for having some downtime. And,
exactly.
So Kate's a nutrition coach, which I think is super cool, obviously, because I'm a nutrition coach. And so this conversation could go all over the place, but there's going to be some parts in this podcast, folks, that you're going to listen to and your jaw's probably going to hit the floor. And I don't know the entire story behind it, but it's certainly going to be a part of this conversation. And so get ready because this is going to be really cool.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited.
Absolutely. So Kate, tell me, let's just really quick, because we both are health nutrition people. What's your thought process on nutrition? What do you have? I mean, every human being obviously is different. So every body type, every person has a little bit different way you've got to treat them as far as their nutrition goes.
Correct.
And I hope people understand that, because it's not a one size fits all, folks. It's just not.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. I love that, because that's what I say. And I think I'm a little more of a food Nazi than anybody else. I believe in removing inflammation, and inflammation is many things, anything from a headache all the way up to cancer and everything in between. And it's different for everybody and what causes that, because I say to some people, whatever's nutrition for me might be poison for you, might be harmful for you. And I am a good case of that, because kale used to cause a lot of issues for me. And a lot of people are like, kale, that's good. That's good for you. Kale is a superfood. But it wasn't for me. One of the things in the time that I've been doing this and the years that I've been doing this, I realized that a lot of the culprit is, carbohydrates, mostly grains in particular, I should say, and sugar. So what I like to do is help people reduce those or altogether eliminate them, depending on where they are in their health journey. Some of people are just not ready to do that. So I meet people where they're at. And that's why I like calling myself a coach, because I push you past your normal limits, push you past what you normally would do, because what you normally are doing is not working. So we need to look at things a little differently.
And I love how you said that, Kate, because, what people don't understand when somebody comes to see you or me about coaching them through their nutrition or their fitness or both or whatever it is, and you tell them, this is the price, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people, for me, my price is fairly high. And so, but the reason it's high is because I know that if you work with me, you're going to get results, because I'm not going to let you fail.
And I'm going to actually add a little addendum to that. It's if you actually do what you are telling them to do, they will see the results. Exactly.
So what I did when I was training, though, to make sure of that, I would have every single, and this is a fucking nightmare, but I would have every client text me their diet every night by 9:00. If I didn't get it by 9:00, you got a question mark at 9:01. And I have already explained to you what that question mark means. That means send me your motherfucking diet now. and so
that's great.
And that's how I got success, because if they didn't send it, I knew I knew something went south.
Yeah, it's accountability, right? We all need that accountability.
If
they know they have to put that in there, like, oh, I should not eat that because I have to put that, I have to give that to Corey, or I have to send that to Kate. I am not doing that.
It's true. Yeah, it's absolutely true. It's no different than going and spending, a bunch of money on something you haven't told your wife or husband about, and then you got to come home and tell them. Same thing.
Yeah,
They're
and a
all
lot
just not doing it.
exactly. And a lot of people don't realize there's a lot of energy that goes into that because it's not a one size fits all. And so you have to be able to know that, okay, well, this reaction is probably from this. So let's try this. If that doesn't work, well, it definitely could be this instead. And so there's a lot of energy that goes into that. And I feel that the information that we have is valuable. And it's different than mainstream. And we're there with them. They have access to us 24/7. I mean, not that I'm awake 24/7, but the times that I'm awake and I get their emails or their text messages, I respond within 24 hours. And I'm sure you're the same exact way.
Right.
So that to me, that exchange in energy that I consider money energy. And in that exchange, I feel that it's a fair exchange. And there's no cost that you can put on your health, none. And I'd rather put my money on this than going to the doctors in my elderly age, when I turn 50, 60, or when I retire, if I ever retire. I don't want to spend my time in and out of the hospital. And I want to enjoy my grandkids if I ever get them from my kids. I've been begging them. I want some grandkids. But I want to be able to enjoy life. I don't want to be in and out of doctors' offices. And so that's my motivation why I do what I do, because of my long history of poor health that I've had. And I want to teach everybody the same exact thing. Then I wanted people to have that same goals and the same passion to want to do whatever they need to do to get healthy and
Right.
not have these excuses. I mean, everybody's got excuses.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Very true. So, so Kate, let's go back for a moment and talk about why did you get into this, and let's go back to maybe younger Kate. Did you grow up as a fat kid? I did.
I was chubby.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was chubby.
Tell me the story.
Yeah. So it was just my sister and I. And she was always skinny. She could eat anything and everything she wanted. And she literally was a size 0. But she also didn't have a chest. I mean, she was just like,
Yeah.
She had no curves. She was just
a flat board.
Yeah, she was. And for me, I was always curvy. I always had a bigger chest, but I also had a little bit of weight too. And so that was kind of my mom always told me I was big boned. That's just a nice way of saying you're fat, I guess.
Right. I've never seen a fat skeleton personally.
I never have either. So apparently, I do have that apparently. But yeah, so growing up, we didn't have a whole lot of money either, and my father wasn't. He was always working a couple jobs. My mom, was always in and out as well. So we really didn't have a whole lot of structure either. And my parents are from Canada, so we were, they always spoke to us in French, and so we had this I guess no one has a normal family, but it wasn't a very, loving kind of setup. So my sister and I had a lot of free reign, and so we had a store across the street. We would always run and use our allowance across the street, buy penny candy, so for me, that was my weakness, was that kind of candy. It wasn't like cakes or baked goods or anything like that. It was more like the Sour Patch Kids. And so growing up eating that stuff. And like I said, we didn't have a whole lot of money. We didn't eat fast food. We didn't grow up on that stuff. We didn't eat out a lot. It was always at home. So we did have, home cooked meals.
But it was like home cooked, fried with grease, like good, like what they call now is comfort food.
Yeah.
But we had it like all the fucking time. Like that's what we ate. Because they just didn't know any better. Really, exactly. I mean, if you think about, I think by when you told me, I've already figured out your age. So we're within 24 months of each other.
Gotcha.
So growing up, our parents didn't know, and then the fat free craze came through, which is how I lost weight, right? And looking back, I'm like, I don't really understand how I lost weight, but isn't that so weird? If you think back that long ago, fat free was the deal. Like if you did fat free, you were going to get skinny, and that was it. And it's so ass backwards now.
It is. And the
Or
funny thing is,
it was
I didn't lose weight doing that. I only gained it. I didn't lose it. It's funny how our metabolisms work different, right? That's why we're saying
yeah,
one size doesn't fit all.
right.
So yeah, but I think for me, what set everything off was I was always sick. I was always was on some kind of antibiotic. I had
Oh,
either some kind of an upper respiratory problem, or it usually was, like walking pneumonia or strep throat. I was constantly sick, constantly. And as we know now, what antibiotics do to us, right? And so they don't only kill the good, they kill the bad, or they don't only kill the bad, they kill the good. And we never repaired that. So I was constantly sick, constantly.
let's dive into the antibiotics really quick. And the reason I say that is because over the last approximately 6 months, I've had something going on with my microbiome, my gut. And I've tried a whole bunch of different shit. I've taken the biome test, which has recently come back, and one of the things on there was kale that I'm not supposed to eat, like you said earlier.
Surprise.
Right. And so, but I still suffer from some of these. I'm still not through it. And my doctor, to your point, gave me 3 rounds of antibiotics. So now, like, I don't know what the hell's going on down here because
Right.
everything's wiped out
Absolutely.
except for the
Absolutely.
problem.
Yeah, totally get that. And I used to, I'm going to let you in on a secret. I guess a lot of secrets are going to come out today.
Mm-hmm.
I used to work for Pfizer. I used to sell Zithromax, erythromycin, which was anywhere from
Yeah.
5-day to the 3-day to the 1-day, right? That was
Z-Pack.
the Z-Pack.
Z-Pack.
Absolutely. And there was a
Wow.
lot of stuff that I learned in that instance where I was like, oh, okay, well, this explains why I have the issues that I have. Although, they claim that Z-Max is a more targeted spectrum antibiotic. I don't think anything really is,
No.
to be honest with you. But yeah, I was like, wow, okay. After I started selling that, I was like, I'm never taking an antibiotic again because of the stuff that I found out about it, the studies that we had to read. Even though we never were allowed to bring them up to the doctors, I knew that stuff. And I was like, there's no way in hell I'm going to be taking another antibiotic.
That's
So,
hard right there. That's hard to
mhm.
go and represent a product that you deep down inside know it's that would be hard for me to do, but I understand, working for a drug company, the money is so good
And
that
as a single
I'm
mom,
guessing,
yeah,
which makes it even more,
appealing, right?
yeah, absolutely, and almost necessary.
Hmm.
You know, that's it's. So I'm getting ready to go into medical device sales. So
Oh,
and I'll tell you about it in a bit.
I would love to hear about that.
Don't let me forget. And there's a good reason. It'll tie actually into what we're talking about right now. Is part of the reason I'm so excited about it. Go ahead.
That's awesome. And I also sold Lipitor. So I know a lot about cardiovascular, and I sold that for 7 years. And I think that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now, because I know the harmful effects of all these pharmaceutical drugs. And I know that the stuff that they're talking about them is not correct. And they can tweak and twist how these studies come out.
What do
So
you mean, Kate? What do you mean? Can you talk about that really quick?
yeah, so if you look at Lipitor and the NHANES study that they have and the Framingham study, there's a lot. Those are the big epidemiological studies that they have out there. Um, and meta-analysis studies, I should say. And what if you look at those, the numbers needed to treat are huge before you actually get benefits from a statin. And instead, they tweak the numbers so that they say, like it's 62% effective. I don't know if that's exactly the number. It's been years since I've worked there, but that is what I'm going to say. But really, in fact, when you dive into the numbers needed to treat, it was really like 1 out of 200 before you actually got the benefits of a statin.
And
And
sorry, go
no,
ahead.
go ahead. What were you
I
going
was
to say?
just gonna say, and the reason for that is because they have a third-party testing company
Yeah,
or lab that technically they fund.
exactly. Exactly. And that's why I have a hard time with a lot of studies that are out there. A lot of people are telling me, well, what about this study? What about that study? I said, you know what? The studies are in my practice. I see that's all the studies I need is what's going on in my practice. I don't need to to follow these other studies, because if you dig deep enough, you definitely know there's some kind of hidden bias behind that. I don't think there's ever one that you can find that's unbiased. I really don't. And I feel that when it comes to nutrition, you can tweak it any way you want to tweak it. Although Lipitor is not nutrition, it's a drug. And I feel that because Lipitor is the number one prescribed drug, they have the money to back it up. They have the money to back anything up that they want to show and to twist it the way they want it to. But I know the effects that you can get from that stuff. I mean, we all know, because the FDA requires that they put it on the commercials, and it's always, the last one's always death. I don't understand how people still want to take this medication after it says death. And that's one of the things I have a hard time with. And that's why I think I do what I do, because we have the ability to control our health, turn on and off our genes through nutrition. And I believe wholeheartedly that, because I see it all the time in my practice. I have stage 4 cancer patients. They no longer have it. They call it a miracle. It's all we're doing is removing the interference. We're giving the body the ability to heal. And when you do that, it's an amazing machine. It can do a lot of stuff. It has that innate ability to do that. So that's why I'm so passionate about what I do now, because of that past history that I had with the pharmaceutical company.
You know something, Kate, and I'm sure you've seen this and or at least heard the story or heard of him, but Dr. Joe Dispenza.
I love Dr. Joe Dispenza.
I mean, that dude.
He's amazing.
Yeah, once you hear his story, like, you cannot argue with how the mind and the body repair itself. You can't. You just can't.
Yeah, and what I love about his story, because he's a chiropractor. My husband's a chiropractor too.
Okay.
And I love that that is how we should all be thinking. The innate inside of us has the ability to do. If we believe that we're not going to heal, we're not going to heal. If we believe that we're going to heal, we're going to heal. So, I think I wholeheartedly believe that. And I think, nutrition is information. It's, it gives our body the fuel. But I think a lot of that is the mindset that I work on with my clients too, because we don't do just nutrition. I like to call myself a life coach, because we look at everything. We look at the stress, we look at lifestyle, we look at relationships, we look at careers, we look at creativity, joy, social, all of that stuff. It's not just me.
I'm so glad that you said that, because, when people, I don't love the term life coach. Mm-hmm. And I feel like the reason I don't like the term is because it has a weird connotation. When somebody looks at life coach, they're like, what does that mean? And the problem is what it means is exactly what you just described. But you can't tell your client that everything that you just said, because they're not going to understand at their stage where they are. They're not going to understand all that. So you have to sell them, I'm going to be your nutrition coach. And then after you get them as your nutrition, you have to give them what they need, not what they want.
Exactly.
It's
funny you say that, because that's exactly where I start is nutrition. Everything's connected. I believe that, physical activity, relationships, all the stuff that I listed other than nutrition is another form of nutrition for us. It's definitely, it just feeds us on a different level. And so that is just as important to take care of, because we can sit there and tell them, don't eat this, and they're seeing results. But if we don't fix what's going on up here in our head, it's going to keep happening over and over and over again, which is why we see a lot of these yo-yo diets, as they call it, because you're not addressing the stress. And that's usually the problem, is the underlying stress. So stress can show up in many different forms. A lot of people think good stress is good. It still has the same chemical response within our body. So we still have to address that. So I look at, extensive exercisers because that's stress as well. And that is, to an extent, some of it's good. But if you're doing it 7 days a week on top of all the other life stresses that we have, it's not good. So we have to address those too. So yeah, you're right. We start with nutrition, but then we look at everything else. And it depends on how these people's lives are, depends on what direction we take and where they need it the most.
For sure. Because as you said, it starts in the mind. If there's, let's just take sugar. You and I both know that sugar, there's scientific facts that back up that sugar is just as bad as heroin and cocaine.
It's
Now
actually worse.
think about, right. Think
Yeah,
about that, Kate. Worse than fucking heroin and cocaine, the two
absolutely.
worst drugs that you can put in your fucking body that are illegal. Sugar's worse than that.
I know, and it's not illegal. Sugar is not
No.
illegal, and there's actually studies that show that dopamine it activates the dopamine receptors 10 times faster than cocaine. So it's that much more satisfying because we get an instant dopamine release versus the cocaine. It takes a little bit longer. So and I just released a thing on sugar today. That's funny that you brought that up. We are addicted to sugar. And there's no doubt about it. It's real. I get people that, and I'm sure you do too, that come to me and I'm addicted to sugar. It's like, well, guess what, honey? We all are.
Yeah.
It's why I think it's best to get rid of it. I have not had sugar in 7 years. I have not had grains in 7 years. And I don't miss it. I mean, let me tell you, it wasn't a piece of cake. It took a long, no pun intended. It took a long time. It wasn't an easy walk in the park, let me tell you. It took a long time, but my health, I had to stop cold turkey. And it
Sure.
took, 8 months before I could even go eat with somebody or, be out in public because I wanted that so bad. And it was a deadly consequence for me. So I couldn't do it. So my story is a little different in that aspect. I can totally respect where people are at and we just do it slowly versus
Sure.
turkey like I did.
So why was sugar so such an important thing for you to cut out,
Yeah,
other than the weight factor, which I'm assuming at that point you didn't have the weight factor.
I didn't. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us why. Do you know Dr. Amen, by the way? Do you know who
Yes, I
Dr.
love Dr. Amen. I love him. Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah, he
His wife
really
is
is.
too.
I don't know his wife, but he's phenomenal.
He is
Anyway, go.
phenomenal.
So tell us, sugar.
So sugar. Let me back up just a little bit more then. So after having all those bouts of antibiotics and have all through my young adult years, I was always not 100%, but I also got in a car accident that broke my pelvis on both sides. Okay. So that was when I was 18. It was a couple months after I had my son.
Oh, hang on. 18, couple of months after you had your son. You had your son at what age?
18. So I had him in December when I was 18. And then 2 months later, I got into a severe car accident and broke my pelvis.
Holy shit, that is a lot for an 18-year-old young lady.
So I had two babies, because I one at 14, one at 18.
Time out.
Then,
what? Okay,
yes.
we're going to scroll back even further because I thought I was shocked at the one at 18, but you just said you had your first child at 14.
Correct.
Kate, what in the hell? Like what? Tell. Okay.
I'm from Maine. There's
and
nothing to do up there but make babies and drink.
Well, I'm from Mayberry, so it's
you
not
got
much
it.
different. Yep.
So it was with my children's the father of the babies from 14 to 24. We were together for 10 years. We tried to make it work, but we both had he was just a year and a half older than me. So we had my daughter and our daughter, and yeah, it was kind of scary. But all the families rallied together, and his mother was a saint. She was an angel. We moved in with her until we were old enough to get our own apartment. I mean, because at that age, you can't have your own apartment, right? Because you're 16.
Drive, hardly.
Hard. I couldn't. He could, but I couldn't. So we moved in with her, and she helped. So I was going to night school. He went to day school, and then he worked at night. So we, I took care of the baby during the day, and so she helped babysit at night when the baby was going to bed, when my daughter was going to bed. So that's kind of what we did through high school. And then,
Kate, let me stop you really quick. So like, I just think about that, and like, you really obviously did not have a normal high school experience whatsoever.
No, I did not.
Do you think about that? Do you think about how that could have affected you? Do you think that maybe how did that affect you moving forward?
I found out who my friends were pretty damn quick.
Good.
Yeah. And I still, to this day, talk to one of them. We still talk to each other. We see each other maybe once or twice every other year. Absolutely adore her. And my kids call her Mama too. That's their second mom. Yeah, I definitely know that it did affect well, there's another twist to the story. My sister, who was a year older than me, also got pregnant.
What?
Yeah. So it was like trying times for the whole family. I remember like it was yesterday when I had to tell my dad. My parents were separated at this time. And I remember he was in the kitchen cooking spaghetti, and he just kind of chucked the spoon at the wall, and the spaghetti sauce went everywhere. And he was livid. I was so mad. And, he, being raised Catholic, he was like, oh, you're going to have an abortion, and you're never going to see this guy again. And obviously he was speaking out of anger and fear and didn't know. I mean, he absolutely adores those kids. Like he does anything for them now. Obviously we kept the babies and we raised them. But yeah, it was tough. I mean, I can't even imagine my kids have broken the cycle. My daughter's going to be 30 and my son's 26, and they don't have babies. So they've broken the cycle, which is great. So I think I did something right there, and they're alive. So I feel I did I did something right.
Right.
But I definitely didn't have the normal high school years of partying and, going out and staying out late and raising hell like everybody else did. And I certainly didn't have the same college experience either. The kids basically lived on college campus with me. I mean, we had our own apartment, but for study groups and all of that, they were there with me. The campus knew who they were, and everybody on campus. It was a small school that I went to, and everybody loved them. And I remember when I walked down to get my degree, my daughter said, we should be walking down that aisle with you. Those kids never once rolled their eyes, slammed the door, mouthed back to me. They helped out so much. They were angels. Absolute angels. They had to grow up quick too, because I was working full time, raising them by myself. At that time, I had been separated, divorced from their dad, and I was going to school full time. So I had a friend move in with me, and she was in the same degree program as me, rent free. She watched the kids while I worked at night, and I literally, Corey, was only getting 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night. That's all I was getting for years. So yeah,
and people talk about the grind, and like that's truly the grind. I mean, that's hard fucking core right there.
It was hard. It was hard. And then in the midst of all that, I was dealing with this injury from my car accident. I dealt with that up until 7 years ago. I was in pain every day. From, if you were to put on a pain scale, I was never below 5, 10 being the worst. I was never below 5. And they were telling me, basically, I was waking up with bloody noses. I had migraines, and they were telling me it was all in my head. Literally, that's what they said. But I would go get MRIs because they wanted to make sure there's no tumors. There was no tumors. So dealing with this pain, I'd go for a run. I wouldn't be able to walk for weeks. I would crawl to the kitchen to get my kids ready for school. I couldn't walk upstairs. There were mornings that I'd get out of bed and I'd fall flat on my face because my hips were numb, my legs were numb from sleeping on my side. I mean, it was just something I had to deal with for 19 years and didn't think anything of it. I was just like, okay, this is just going to be my life. They wanted me to take pain medications, and I was like, nope, not doing that. So that was something that I had to mentally push through every day of my life, every day. And one of the things that, the kids, I can just only imagine what I put them through. I guess that's why I don't tell the story that often, because I think about that, like a kid seeing their mom crawling to the kitchen, or
better yet, no, wait, Kate, you're looking at this the wrong way. You're looking at it like this is just me outside looking in. I think that you think that they think less of you, and maybe they look at you and they're like, she's a fucking warrior. Like, she's
so.
like she's the person I look up to, because no matter what, she gets shit done.
Well, I think you're right, because I don't ever think of them thinking that I'm less of a person, but I do see it in them now. Like, they're young. They should be living life. They're in their, 20s. My daughter's going to be 30, but they work all the time. I'm like, oh, that's got to be my fault. They should be like enjoying life and having fun and traveling and, but they're workaholics like I was at that point in time.
Well,
I'm
are
just
they
figuring
doing
out the
what they
balance.
love?
Um,
Or are they doing what they like?
They're doing what they like, not what they love. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, is it, do they both have good jobs?
They do. They do.
Okay.
They're finding their own way. They're finding their path, which I love. They have to figure it out. Here I am. I think I'm 44. I think that's what I am.
That was the math I did.
Okay. I think I'm 44 and I'm just figuring it out myself. I mean, I'm just figuring out the balance, the balance of life and relationships and business and all of that too. So I know they're going to find their own way because they're a hell of a lot smarter than I was. So I'm so excited to see their lives unfold. And I'm so proud of them too. It's been, we used to laugh. My daughter and I would say that we'd be in the nursing homes together. Cause I always say, you know what, you're going to be changing my diaper when I'm getting
Right.
older. She's like, no, we're going to be in the nursing home together. Cause we're so close in age.
Right.
So we kind of laugh. That's kind of the joke for us together to do that. Cause we always say, that our kids are the ones that are going to change our diaper when we get older. She says no. She says, hell no. She goes, we're going to be in the nursing home together.
So funny.
It is funny. So yeah, it was quite the learning curve to have to kind of grow up really fast. The way I say it now is I can party responsibly, even though I don't drink now. But I did. There was a short period of time that I did. But in the midst of all the healing, this is all the stuff that I've kind of figured out was, there was that healing of, being pregnant at the age of 14, I had family members tell me that I was never going to amount to anything. So I used that as a huge motivation. And I proved them wrong. I went to college. I had a good job, paying some good money when I was doing the pharmaceuticals. And even though I didn't agree with them, I was a single mom. It was putting food on my kids, in my kids' mouth, a roof over my head. I was looking at it in that aspect. And a lot of the doctors will tell you that I always preach diet and exercise first. It's like, do your diet and exercise first before you prescribe any of this. And, I still see them occasionally around and they tell me like, you're the only one that ever said that. And I was like, well, that's what the package insert says. That's the only way it made myself feel good about selling that stuff.
Sure.
So yeah, it was, when I look back at all of that, I mean, it just kind of like, wow, there's a lot of things that I did overcome, and it totally did make me the person that I am today. And I know there's somebody out there that probably needs to hear this. This is probably why it's coming out. I don't tell it often, but when I do, I don't mind talking about it. It's not like it's a secret, a hush hush secret I like to keep. It's just sometimes it's uncomfortable talking about it because who has a baby at 14? Not too many people.
No, but there's probably hundreds of thousands of people that do. And I hope that just one of those people hear this story.
Yeah.
Because you're a great example of making a decision that did change the course of your life, but it didn't change it for the worse.
No,
it
absolutely
changed
not.
it for the better, which is fun. I mean, that in itself is such a phenomenally powerful story.
Yeah.
I can't imagine having a child at 14. I can't.
I
barely imagine having a baby now.
I mean, know.
Like my brother just had a baby, and I'm like, she's cute, but like, I'm not down to stay up all night changing diapers.
Exactly.
I'm not in my wheelhouse right now.
It's another job. Absolutely. And what's interesting is I always thought that I was going to be a motivational speaker in that aspect, to help people that do have babies at a young age.
And why aren't you?
Because I'm so much more passionate about the nutrition that, that's the route that I go. But I've never, I shouldn't say never. I have yet to bump into somebody that has that need of, okay, what do I do? I'm scared. I'm young. I don't have support at home, kind of thing.
Kate,
but I definitely would love to.
Well, Kate, I mean, how many people like that are really going to reach out? Meaning,
True.
I mean, they're not going to put on Facebook, I'm scared to death, I'm 14, I'm pregnant, what the fuck am I going to do? However, the more you tell this story and the more people hear that, somebody's going to hear it and they're going to be able to direct message you and say, yeah, I'm really struggling.
That's true. And
And you could start
absolutely.
a Facebook group saying, hey, here's a Facebook group, put it out and talk about, hey, this is what I went through. If you're struggling with this, you're more than welcome to join and we can all help each other. And I guarantee you'll see it grow, Kate.
I probably would. You're probably right. It's probably more prevalent than I think. That's, I'm sure there's a lot of, because, well, here I think about it, I went to a special school. It was teen parent education is what it was called. And young women that had babies that needed to finish their degree went there. I went there just when I was pregnant, and then I ended up going to night school just because being in 8th grade, you don't want to walk around with a belly in high school.
Definitely
That's just, yeah, that was so uncomfortable, and that's something I wanted to do. So I ended up going to this, teen parent education. They called it TPE, and I went there just for my pregnancy term, and then after that, I went to night school and finished my degree that way.
How many people were in that TPE?
We had, at the time that I was there, I want to say probably about 10 people.
So that was a long time ago when this was far less prevalent than it would be now. So don't you think they probably have those very schools now?
I would think so. I know that they had a reunion. They asked my sister to go. So she went. She went and saw some of the people that we had gone to school with, because my sister wasn't one of those girls as well, because we were, as you know, pregnant at the same time.
Right.
So she was there with me, which was great. I mean, we've been through a lot. She's like my best friend. So I love that path with her. So yeah, she went, and she said it was quite emotional going in there to see everybody. And I had totally forgot that we went to that school. It's almost like I've forgotten that chapter of my life and have moved on, which is kind of interesting now that we're talking about that. I was like, wow, I kind of let that one go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's something there that you need to potentially explore.
Yeah.
Because I think you would get I don't think, I know, because I've had this happen, helping. I've been sober for over 10 years. So when somebody reaches out to me that's random and they're struggling, and I'm able to help them through whatever it is they're going through, and they don't pick up that drink that day. And I'm not, I don't know if you know the whole story, and I won't go through it because I've told it a million times on here. But essentially, I don't attend AA anymore, so I don't have those interactions a lot. But when I do, it's very powerful. Or if somebody asks me, whatever, if it's anything that I can help them with, it does give me a sense of joy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and maybe that is, everyone's telling me I need to write a book. Maybe that's what I need to write my book about.
There you go. What better time than now?
I know, right? Because we're stuck inside.
I'll tell you what I did for my book, and I haven't published it yet, but I'll tell you what I've done.
Oh,
I talked into the microphone, and it recorded, or it on the screen, because for me to write out everything, like I feels like I had a bullet in my head. Like I don't want it. And so I did that. It didn't work great, but it was a hell of a great start. Awesome. So I was able to go in then and fix all the dumbass typos because of my accent.
I don't have an accent. I have an accent, and it doesn't even do it for me.
So I'm sure there's better ones out than one I used. I don't even remember what it was, but that's how I did it, Kate. And I just I just sat here. I just talked about shit that that's in your brain that and that you may think doesn't matter, but is hugely impactful for somebody else. So, just think about this whole conversation. You'll have this recorded. This is a great start.
Yeah, it is. That's awesome. I mean, that feels better than writing a nutrition book right now, because I have so much stuff up here.
Right.
It's like, where do I start?
Right.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate that.
You should totally do that.
You definitely got my wheels turning here.
Hey, whatever I can do to help. So 24 years old, you'd had 2 children, you finished high school. Did you finish college by that point?
I did. I graduated college even a year earlier than. So I graduated high school a year early, and I finished college a year early. And then I went to work for the pharmaceutical company, and that one, that was the same, like I said, that was like 19 years of, pain and just dealing with the bloody noses and just, putting my kids first and just making sure that, they had a roof over their head and doing everything I had to do. Sometimes I had to work 2 jobs. It was just whatever I could do to get them, to be healthy and have a safe place. So then after that,
well, hang on. What was
yeah.
causing the bloody noses? Did we ever go?
Well, we're gonna find
We're
this is
getting there. Okay, sorry.
there.
Okay, great.
That's quite all
Great.
right. So, so at 18, when my daughter turned 18, she moved out with her boyfriend, who is now her husband, and my son decided he wanted to go live with his dad. And I thought I had at least another couple years with him before that happened. And so when there's a point in a boy's life when he needs his dad, and so I was not going to be the one. I let him decide. I said, well, okay. I even went and hiked the Grand Canyon just to say, okay, you know what, I need some guidance here, because selfishly I don't want him to go. And then there's a part of me like, well, it's not about me. It's about what Duncan needs, my son. So it's what he needs. And so I came back and I sat with him and I said, okay, this is the deal. I don't want you to go, but I'm going to let you go. And this still chokes me up. I said, but if it doesn't go the way you want it to go there, you're not coming back unless your life is being threatened. And then of course you're coming back. But if you're being disciplined by your dad because of you're doing some teenager thing, that's not the reason for you to come back. And so we kept, usually they would live with me during the school year and their dad in the summer. So we just reversed roles. He lived with his dad during the school year and me in the summer. And, that was like the toughest part of my year. Like, so now all of a sudden I'm empty nester and everybody's gone. I'm like, oh no, what do I do? And this is where a lot of stuff, instead of sitting with myself and figuring out myself, I filled up my time. So, cause I was going to college and then I had the kids, I kept it once the kids were gone, not totally gone, but they were on their own. I still worked 2 jobs. I would only come home and sleep for an hour or 2. I'd go hike, 3,000-4,000 footers in a weekend. I'd come home, sleep for 2 hours, go bartend. I mean, I didn't stop. I was constantly going. And I did that for years until about 7 years ago. I met this awesome man who now is my husband. I met him at a race. We were at a snowshoe race, and it was his first snowshoe race and my first snowshoe race. And
like, hold on, snowshoe, like the brackets on the bottom of your foot?
Yes.
Oh.
And did you know, Corey, that there is special running snowshoes? So they're thinner and lighter. So if you try running with your mountaineering ones, it's not going to work. It's disaster if you try that. Well, it's disaster even if you try the running ones. It's just some contraptions on the bottom of your feet. What
do you mean? This is so new to me. I've never talked to a human being that has ever walked with snow, like those type snowshoes ever in my life. So enlighten me a little bit more. What do you mean?
So they're so mountaineering snowshoes, they usually have they're pretty wide. So it allows you to have like a heavy pack. So they're bigger because you want to stay above the snow. And they usually have like teeth underneath them along the edges. And they also have them underneath your actual footbed because they're called crampons. So it just kind of like bites into the snow and the ice. So the running ones are very narrow. They also have teeth underneath the feet, but that's it. They don't have them along the edges. So they're very narrow and light. They're almost to the point where you don't really know that they're on the bottom of your feet unless you step on it when you're trying to run and you trip, which does happen. So you kind of have to change your gait when you're running with them. You get a little wider stance when you're running. Because they're ever so slightly wider than your feet. So
how hard is that to run with those fucking things on?
It is so hard. It's hard to even hike with them on. Like my first few hikes with them, when we go hike these big mountains with them, I fall. So as you can imagine, when you're trying to run with them, the first few races you do, you're pretty klutzy.
I bet your lower body is destroyed after that.
I couldn't walk because mind you, remember, every time I ran, I couldn't walk. After that, I hurt so bad. Like, you want to talk about falling out of bed the next day. That's exactly what happened.
And it was worth it to you. That was
Mm,
so. It was worth going
mm.
in. Why? But why? What part of
Well,
it made it worth it? Okay, we're getting there.
I believe it was running from myself and not really dealing with what was going on
Yeah.
inside my head, and a lot of the um, things that we as humans, when we want to have a lot of growth, we kind of stuff, and instead of dealing with that to grow more, and I was stuffing, and I believe this was the way of doing that. And a lot of it is self-sabotaging. It shows up multiple ways in my life as far as self-sabotaging goes. So this is definitely, looking back, doing all the healing that I've done now, definitely a self-sabotaging, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Behavior.
Sure.
so,
Sure.
so I'd gone to this race, and my now husband was there too. And we hit it off. We started talking, and one of my race directors said to me, he's like, "So how many days are you not going to walk after this?" Because he knew the whole thing. And my husband David's like, "What does he mean by that?" And we started talking. He goes, "Well, that's not normal." And I didn't know he was a chiropractor at the time. But we started talking, and he found me on Facebook, and we just kept talking. And next thing you know, we started dating, and he all along kept trying to get me on his table. He's like, "Let me adjust you. Let me adjust you." I'm like, "You're not touching me." Like, I was not a believer of chiropractic, and because I don't like cracking of bones. Like, if you sit there and crack your fingers, I get really grossed out. I don't like that sound. And he's like, "Stop being a candy ass." He goes, "There's other ways to adjust you. I don't have to crack you that way." I was like, "No, you're not touching." And so it took him a long time to get me on his table. When he did, he actually made it worse. I was so mad at him. He's like, he goes, "Just stick with it. Just stick with it 3 times a week for a month. Just give me a month." And sure as shit, it was almost 30 days. I woke up one morning, no pain at all. Now, I don't know if you remember, but I said I always lived with something, 5 to 10. I woke up that morning with nothing, like zero. And I was like, "Oh God, what's wrong? What happened?" And, it took me, I want to say probably about a week before I actually told him that, because I was expecting it to come back. It didn't come back. And so when I finally told him, he was like, "Oh, that's awesome." And in the midst of all this, my headaches were still there, but no bloody noses, no more bloody noses. And I was getting headaches still on a regular basis. And migraines were far and few between, but I was still getting them. And so we decided to dig a little deeper into healing. And he actually introduced me to Mike Dooley, Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipman, all of these, amazing thought leaders when it comes to, you know, just changing your mindset. All different levels. And Wayne Dyer was another one. So I just dove into all of these books. And while I was doing that, and mind you, I was an athlete, so I've always ate healthy. So I thought, and I ate mostly vegetarian. Actually, at this point, I was vegan. And then I would have, I guess, pescatarian, because I'd have fish every now and then. And then I was like, okay, I got to start digging a little deeper. So I started doing a lot of research, and I said, okay, I'm going to try the GAPS diet. I'm going to just do the
The
elimination of
what?
all the GAPS diet. So that is an elimination upon elimination for most people. And it's all about healing your gut and taking everything out that causes, issues,
Okay,
basically.
you definitely got to dive deeper into this because I need to hear this
Yeah.
badly.
Okay. So basically what you do is you go on bone broth for 2 to 3 weeks, basically is what
Just
you do.
bone
Just bone
broth.
broth. Just bone broth. So I did that. And then you start adding things in slowly. Like, you start with egg whites. You put that into your bone broth and see if you can do that. Well, when I was doing that, I was getting hives. I was getting headaches, migraines, stomach aches. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I can't have egg whites. So then they want you to do egg yolks. So then I put egg yolks in. Oh my gosh, the reaction was even worse. So then they wanted you to do things like squashes, things that were less irritable for most people, because they're less oxalates, less lectins, things like that are very harmful to our bodies for people that have autoimmune diseases. So I went with squashes. I was able to eat them, but it was like like someone had punched me in the gut. I didn't have bloody noses. I didn't have hives. So I was like, well, that's the least amount of reactions that I have. So I'm just going to stick with that.
So like it was a bloat, it was a pain, it was like a sharp pain or dull or what?
Depending on how much I had. So it was, sometimes I ate so much because I was so hungry that it felt like a sharp pain. It got to the point where I was orange from all the keratin, from having, it was butternut squash is what I started having a lot of.
You turned orange?
I had orange. I had like an
What
orange hue. That's how much I had. Isn't that funny?
The reason it's funny because I take a peptide called melanotan. Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
So when you take too much of it, you turn fucking orange. You look like an Oopa Loopa. So it's a very fine line. So that's hilarious.
That is hilarious. And then I ended up, anything else I added after that, I'd have a reaction to. It got to the point where when I first met my husband, I was 150 pounds. And at this point, I ended up being like 110, 114. I was right on there. And I was still working out. I was still doing CrossFit. I was still climbing, rock climbing. I was still running. I was doing everything that I normally do.
The bone. By the way, how many times a day were you eating that?
Oh, I was drinking it all day. Oh, because I was so hungry.
Okay, so there wasn't a limit on how much you could have.
No, you could have as much as you wanted when you were hungry, just to have it. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
This is the second time, by the way, somebody's had to tell me this. So clearly there's something here.
Yeah. I feel that it's very beneficial for a lot of my clients. I've done it with them. It was great, but there's something for me that I had to go a little deeper. So what I ended up doing was I went and did the Gerson's therapy, which is just all juicing. And you have like 8 juices a day. They believe in having some boiled white potatoes after you let them cool down. I couldn't even have sugar. I couldn't anything that had sugar, I had a reaction to. And this is where I started figuring this out. So my husband sat me down. He never tells me anything. He never tells me to do anything, but he did. He goes, "You're buying a juicer. You're going to do that." I read the Gerson's therapy book. It's like this big. It's over 500 pages. I read it in one night. I did not go to bed. I finished it because whatever they were saying rang so true to me. And I was like, this is it. This is it. This is going to be my healing. And so the first juice I had, Corey, I remember that like it was yesterday. I was on the floor in the kitchen. It looked like I had just jumped out of the shower. I was sweating. I was writhing in pain. I was curled up on the floor. I was like, oh my God, this hurts so bad. And my body was so undernourished to begin with. But what I found is I took out the apple, the pain went away. Then I put in carrots. Well, guess what? There was pain. And then I was like, okay, so what's the problem? It's got to be the sugar. And so I took everything out that had sugar in it. So anything that had a least amount of sugar, it came out. And then I started doing just like green vegetables and a little bit of acidity. I was still having some pain. And then I was like, oh, maybe I need to do organic. And that's where most of the pain went away, was when I went organic.
No
So
way.
it could be the pesticides. I don't know. I don't know fully because I lost all faith in the medical community. And I don't mean to offend anybody in that.
No, I get it.
They told me I just need to take pain medications and they didn't want to dig to the bottom of it. So I had to do this all on my own. So I did Gerson's for about 8 months. Let me tell you, that was so expensive because I had about 8 juices a day. It was ridiculous.
Trust me, I've juiced. I don't even know how you did that because I would have to go to the store for a week and I would spend, not organic, I would be spending probably $300 a week on fucking one. And then 2, where the fuck do you put them all?
Exactly.
Because you have to buy like pounds of shit.
I always get that comment of, do you have rabbits?
Right. Like, what the fuck are you doing with 100 cucumbers? Like, what is, you just really like cucumbers? I'm like,
it's so true. It's so true. And I kid you not, Corey. I mean, I was having 8 a day. So I was spending like thousands of dollars a week is what I was doing.
Oh yeah.
but I was seeing a change. Like every time I did something, I always saw a benefit to it. That's why I continued to do it. And then I'd get to this point where I'd get good and then I'd just stay there. I'd hit this plateau and I'm like, okay, so what's next? What am I missing? And so I started having like nuts, and I started having avocados, like started introducing some fats. Those resonated really well with me. And this is where I started gaining a little bit of weight back, because now I have got a little bit of carbs and fat, right? So I'm like, oh, this is great. So now I'm starting to gain some weight back. I look at pictures. I look so emaciated. I mean, like my face was sunken in and I just didn't look healthy at all. And so I'm glad that that's over. And then I went to keto, and I did vegetarian keto. So I would still have, I did autoimmune, paleo. I tried a lot of other things first before I went to vegetarian keto. And then I did that for 5 years. I did the vegetarian keto for 5 years. And I call myself a vegetarian keto because I couldn't eat eggs still. If I did, I paid the price. So it was very rare that I'd have an egg. And then I would also have fish here and there, because I'm all about not having all that toxicity and trying to keep the metal toxicity very low.
Yeah,
and
the mercury.
So I stayed away from that. I'd have that occasionally. And when I say occasionally, it's the true occasion. It's like once or twice a year. It wasn't like once a month or once every other week. It was like once or twice a year. And then the other thing was I'd occasionally, when I really craved meat, it would be burger. It's the only thing I could eat because I didn't like the texture of meat in my teeth. So I was like, oh, I can do burger and I can cook it till it's burnt and there's no pink in it and I can eat that. So that's what I would do. And that was either once or twice out of the year too. So I kept healing. I kept getting better. I was able to do everything that I needed, but there was still that underlying, I still had headaches. I still, I just couldn't get that. And then obviously, I'm a female, so female monthly issues were still an issue. And I was like, okay, this should be getting better. When we're eating healthy, this stuff should be getting better. So,
well, especially at that low of weight that you were, I don't know how tall
yeah.
you are, but still 110, still, it's a pretty, because once you get to a certain body fat percentage, women stop having a period. Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't, I kept going, which was like, so at this point, when I went to vegetarian keto, I was back up to 140 pounds. And that's where I feel like I was the most comfortable. And I loved that. And that's where I stayed. Now, mind you, 7 years ago, when I had first started my journey, I was 150 pounds, right? And I have always been able to, everybody always says I looked very muscular. I was able to just distribute it very well. And so I think most of it was my chest, but I don't know, who knows, but I was 150 and now I'm 130. So when I started my vegetarian way of eating keto, I ended up gaining some weight and I stayed at 140, and that's where I always functioned at. And I always felt good. But like I said, there was still some underlying, I had, bloating still, but it was very rare and I just couldn't pinpoint what it was. I'm like, what is going on? There's still some things that I'm eating. And at this point, like I said, you can't, I didn't do dirty keto. I didn't do, like fast food stuff. I didn't do dairy. I didn't do that stuff. So it's not like I was doing dirty keto. I was doing clean keto. So then I fell upon Jordan Peterson and Michaela Peterson, and they started talking about, the carnivore diet. And so I was like, okay, maybe, so I started doing some research on it, did research for probably about 8 to 9 months. And I put a couple of my clients on it that had autoimmune diseases. So, and I normally never tell my clients to do stuff that I've never done before.
Right.
And so, and I then put my daughter on it. She's lost over like 85 pounds and she's totally, she's totally changed, which is amazing. But all these people that I put on, they had miracles, right? And I was like, okay, there's something to this. And so I started digging into the oxalates and the lectins deeper, and how a lot of these other chemicals or nutrients that people call are chemicals for some people that have autoimmune diseases. Now, remember, I don't know what I had. I just know that I was having reactions. So obviously it was an autoimmune, but we just don't know what. And if I think we were to go and have a look at it, it was probably Crohn's. If anybody was to say that, it was either Crohn's, maybe with some Lyme, maybe I had a little bit of Lyme in there. And so I went to Carnivore within 7 days. Holy cow. Like the first day I was like, whoa, what's going on? I thought I couldn't get any better. I was like, whoa, mental clarity. Hello. And then 7 days later, my gums stopped bleeding. My gums have always bled, and not just like lightly bled when I flossed or brushed my teeth. It was like someone punched me in the mouth. I came out of that bathroom like, I was like, oh my God, my gums aren't bleeding. And my husband was like, what? What are you talking about? He had no idea that my gums would bleed. And I was like, since I was a teenager, my gums always bled. Now my
He
gums are
didn't
not
know
bleeding.
that?
We never brushed our teeth in the same room, like we would just always.
On purpose, clearly.
Probably, yeah. I mean, subconsciously, I probably did that on purpose.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
Yeah. And so I was like, my gums aren't bleeding. And he's like, oh, that's awesome. And that's, he's like, okay.
Great. That's wonderful. I mean, this sounds pretty normal.
Funny, right? And then 2 weeks later, I noticed that there's no more hair at the bottom of the shower. I don't have to clean out the drain anymore.
Because your hair was falling out.
It was falling out. It was so baby fine. And it still is kind of fine, but I have more hair than I've ever had in my whole life. And my husband will say it too. He's like, wow, your hair's gotten bigger. And I was like, I know, isn't this awesome? It's just crazy. Like even all the small little things are growing in. I've never had these little peach fuzz before. It's crazy. Like everything is coming to life. I mean, my brain, I don't have the issues that I used to have when it's that time of the month anymore, like the mood swings, the what we call the dragon, that most people are like, stay away from her. That stuff is gone. And the only thing that still remains is a migraine before 1 or 2 days before. That's still the only thing but my migraines only show up with that. They don't show up after I eat things. I'm at day 200 and almost 230 carnivore. And I tried at 150, day 150, I tried one mushroom. My legs were on fire afterwards. I got, hives from that. And then I tried a sweet potato. I got a migraine and hives. And then I tried, just the other day, actually, a week ago, I tried some butternut squash, and I have hives on my legs. What's left of them on my legs from having that. So there's some healing going on, and it's huge, which is great. So I plan on staying this way for a little bit longer. So it's just all about the healing of the gut. Is every step that I did, it healed it more. And this is the elimination of all eliminations, doing just meat. That's all I have. I don't do anything other than that. And it's just been a life changer for me, a big time life changer. And I don't think I have any plans of changing right now, because it's clear that I still have some healing to do. But it's
yeah, Kate. So, okay. So, obviously you know who Sean Baker is.
I've interviewed him. He's awesome. I've been to his house.
I have interviewed him as well.
Yeah, he's awesome.
You did go to his house?
I did. It was the day his book came out. I got to see him. I was interviewing him for my podcast at his house because I was out visiting my son in LA. And so he's like, yeah, just come over to the house. We'll do it here. And I was like, okay. So I went to his house. It was beautiful. They had just moved in. So
I'll have to ask you a question whenever we get off the air, because where he works out, it looks like it's literally like a shithole dungeon basement.
It's his garage.
I mean, literally, I sit there and I'm looking at it and I'm like, this is like the shittiest gym ever. And like, I just don't understand.
Oh, that's awesome. It's his garage. Yeah.
Okay. So that's so interesting. Yeah, we can talk more about that off camera. So
Absolutely.
what do you, so walk me through your daily, I know what he eats.
Yes. Yeah. So I do a little different than Dr. Baker, because he doesn't believe in the eat nose to tail. I eat more like Dr. Paul Saladino. So I do everything that is animal based is great. So but the way I look at it is nutrient density. And I start with, the very tippy top. When I look at protein, the most dense protein is your oysters, and then your mollusks. And then you look at, your organ meats, then there's the egg, and then there's your muscle meat, and then there's your ground beef, and then your chicken and your turkey, and, pork is down at the bottom. So that's how I eat. So I don't eat any chicken. I don't eat turkey. I don't eat pork. I don't eat any of that stuff. I eat
Okay.
everything above. And so,
Okay. I've never heard anybody break it down like that. So that's why you see me looking a little confused because I'm
yeah.
like, what the hell is she talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you say oyster, literally an oyster, is that what you mean? Okay.
Yeah,
So,
literally an oyster. And it's
okay.
better raw, obviously.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have oysters.
Yep.
Okay.
So I do oysters, and we usually do that once or twice a month. We'll go out for oysters, my husband and I, and just do a date night because we don't go to
Raw.
eat. Yep, we'll go and have it raw.
But you could buy them at the store raw if you
Yeah, you
wanted
could.
to.
You could, and I don't know about you guys, but here we don't have a whole lot of wild caught. They're usually farm raised, and believe it or not, there's a lot of oysters out there that are farm raised.
And
And
what is there a big difference?
for me, there is. So this is why people call me the food Nazi. um, they're not in their natural environment. They're not fed the natural foods that they're supposed to be fed. It's kind of like the wild caught salmon versus the farm raised salmon, right? They're being pumped full of stuff that they shouldn't have. And when you're eating those oysters, you can taste the difference too. They're more gamier tasting. They're more,
Ah,
yeah. So this is totally different in that aspect. I don't know what they're feeding them. I don't know how these fisheries are handled as far as the mollusks go. And so, but for me, I would rather not anything that humans touch. I just don't want to even.
sure. But you could.
You could.
Okay. All right.
Absolutely. You could.
So oysters, what else?
So oysters I'll do occasionally. So, but typically every day I'll have my grocery shopping consists of going to buy sardines that are skinless, boneless, and packed in water. So that's what I have. So I'll eat that once or twice a week. I eat eggs. So I'll usually have 2 or 3 eggs.
I thought eggs like completely fucked you up.
I can eat them now. That's what I was when I say that I went carnivore, everything has shifted for me. So now I can have eggs, no problem, which is amazing. I used to have like migraines and hives, and none of that stuff happens now, which is really cool.
And you've
Um,
got no inflammation.
I wouldn't say no, because when I had those little tastes of things that I had, obviously I had inflammation. I had an inflammatory response, right?
Right. But when you're eating straight carnivore,
Mm. No, I don't have gas and I'm bloating. I don't have the fogginess feeling. I don't feel like I'm 100 pounds heavier anymore. I have so much energy. It's amazing. That first week when I woke up and I was like, oh my God, because I knew what brain fog was. I felt it. I knew what it
yeah.
was. And I thought I had it all back. And then when I went to carnivore and I woke up, I was like, holy shit, I have even more. I was like, wow, who'd have thought I would have had more clarity? It was unbelievable. I can't even describe that feeling. It was just such an eye opener. And then I usually eat fatty meats because, I need fat. Your body runs off on fat or carbs, and I don't have carbs at all. So I need fat. And so I make sure I get the fattier cuts like the ribeyes and the flat irons and, the New York strips, the New York
Okay.
sirloin strip steaks. So I do that with
Okay.
eggs or sardines, or I do eggs and sardines, or eggs are always a part of it for me because of the
Okay.
omega-3s and fats. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So all right. So beginning to end, just really quick, your day
Yeah.
looks typically like what? You get up in the morning and then you eat eggs and sardines, eggs and steak, eggs and
Mhm.
something.
Yeah, I actually don't eat right away because I work out. I do my meditation. I do my
Do you
workouts,
and
and
fast? Are you fasting?
yep,
Do you fast?
I'm
Okay.
fasting.
Tell
Yep.
me. What is
So I usually, I don't eat usually until about 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning. I get up at 5 and I don't eat until 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning. And then I stop eating at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But I fast between those 2 meals. Like I don't have anything in between those 2 meals at all. So I'll have that steak and the eggs, or some concoction that I told you that I usually have. And then at dinner, I do have bone broth too. So I'll have that in the morning. That's my coffee, is my bone broth with my
but
meal.
does that break your fast?
I have it with my meal. So
Oh,
yes,
okay,
it
okay,
all
okay.
at the
So
same time. Mhm.
gotcha. Okay.
Yep. So I do that, and then I work all day, and then I have my dinner, in between 3 and 4, and then I'm done for the rest of the night. So that's
So essentially
basically
two
what I eat.
meals.
2 meals. I've tried the OMAD thing, the 1 meal a day, and I'm just too active for that. I don't feel like I can get all my nutrients in. I'm starving, and this way I don't think about food at all. I'm not starving. I'm not wondering when my next meal is going to be. So this to me, I know is the right way for me to eat, eating intuitively this way. I have a time frame that I put in there, but if like today I haven't eaten yet and it's noontime, so I try and be done at least by 4, no later than that. And then if I end up eating more, I end up eating more, but I didn't work out today either.
So your typical window is about, if I can do my calculations, about a 7-hour window.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ironically, that's kind of what I was doing that is exactly what I was doing with a 7-hour. I was doing 12 to 7. I would eat from 12 to 7.
Perfect.
And then since all this, I've kind of gotten off track a little bit, but I'm glad you told me that because I'm going to get back on. Now, what do you know about, animal, I have to look this up because I think you're going to know exactly what this is. I would love to have your, opinion on what. Go ahead.
While you're looking that up, I'm gonna suggest to you. I would start ending your window of, this is how I look at it, because we have our natural circadian rhythm, kind of has I say should have a factor in how we eat, because if our body is getting ready to start shutting down for the evening, it shouldn't be digesting. So that's why I like to stop eating at 4:00, especially this time of year, because of when the sun sets, right? So as the time goes on and it gets darker later, then I would say, yeah, sure, 7:00 is not a big deal. But as that sun starts to set, that's when our melatonin starts to get produced. And that's where our natural circadian rhythm kind of comes in. And I feel that we have, other than the stresses that are in everyday life, this is also another stress for us in our body, is that it's now trying to digest when it should be in the rest mode. And it should be, winding down and producing the melatonin and not worrying about all this other stuff that's going on in our gut. So that's another thing maybe you could dive into and look into. That's why I stop eating at 4, 5 o'clock. I'll push it in summertime to 5 for that reason.
Have you ever heard of grass-fed beef organs?
Yes, actually, nosetatail.org. My good
What
friend,
is it?
Nosetatail.org.
Okay.
They're out of Texas.
Okay.
My good friend Brian Sanders owns that. He's the one that is doing the documentary Food Lies. He has interviewed over 150 people in this nutrition realm, and he is on the quest to prove that there is a right way to eat. It doesn't necessarily have to be just keto. It doesn't have to. So that should be coming out this year, I hope. But anyway, he has that. It's a grass-fed, grass-finished organ meats. White Oak Pastures, they're in Georgia, not too far from you. They are a regenerative farm, and they also sell organ meats. So between the two places, I like to shop between the two, because sometimes one's out and then the other one. But the nose to tail, that's the best one, because they have a patty that you can get. It's like a ground burger, and it has the heart, liver, spleen, kidney, it mixed in with bison and beef. So that to me is easier to eat than an actual liver. I can't sit down. I tried. I cooked a liver. I can't do it. I even cut it into cubes and put it in the freezer. I can't do it. This is the way I do it. And I love cracking an egg over it and then just eating it with an egg like a burger, basically, is what that is.
Well, this is pills, what I was referring to. This is...
Oh, the ancestral supplements.
Yes. That's exactly what it was. That's exactly what it was. So your thoughts?
Yeah, I love that. Brian, his last name escapes me. I talked to him last year in July. I ordered a couple of his supplements because he is the only one that does desiccated parts. They automatically freeze them, put them in, and there's no fillers. There's no rice. There's no grain added to it like most supplements have. So I'm a big fan of his stuff. I only use it when I travel or when I'm out of organ meats. I will get it. So right now I have pancreas down in my cupboard, and I've got bone meal down in there. And I also have male optimization, Brad Kearns, who's Primal Blueprint. He is a big spokesperson for them, and he created this formula. He calls it MoFo, and it's for male enhancement, basically, male performance. So he asked if we could, if we could supplement that, try it out. Not me, obviously. So yes, I said, of course, we'll help you out with that. So he sent us some to try, and just the results that you get, like the mental clarity, the digestion, all of that stuff is just amazing for, especially the pancreas. If you have any digestive issues, the pancreas is amazing for it. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I would love to have, if you've got this guy's name that at Ancestral, whatever,
Yeah,
I
his name
would
is
love,
Brian. Okay,
yeah, I would love, if you've got a way of getting a hold of him, I would
I
love
do.
to talk to him, because I think this would also mutually benefit him if I got on this and it worked and I could talk about it, you know?
Yeah, I will. And I'll introduce the two of you.
Thank
Absolutely.
you. That'd be great.
Yeah.
So that's super cool. I was just looking at that today, literally today, because
Of course
I'm
you are.
sitting. Yeah, because I have a good friend, Tony Freeman. I don't know if you actually may know who that is. Actually,
What's his
uh,
name?
Tony Freeman. So Tony Freeman has won. Uh, I can't tell you how many bodybuilding shows. He is a legend.
Awesome.
He almost won the Olympia 5 times. He
Oh, no
was
way.
number 3 or 5 in the world for 10 years. You know
Wow.
him, trust me.
I
You're
bet if
in
I
that,
saw a picture of him, I probably would.
no question. So he's a good friend of mine, and I was at
Awesome.
his house and we were talking, and he said, you need to start eating these organ parts, and he said, you need to fast with the bone broth, and of course I didn't do it. I tried, and it didn't work out. But he recommended sauerkraut with it. Well, that's fermented.
Yes.
So I think that reacted
Yes,
for
it
me.
does. It did for me too, because I feel that, probiotics are good, but you have to take care of everything else first before you put those in there. And not everybody, it's not, they have this, they're held way up here, but we also have to be cautious of them too, because they are bacteria, right? So even good bacteria, and imbalance in good bacteria does harm too. So you've got to be careful of that as well. So I'm a big believer in, just getting it, even though kraut is fermented and it is in its natural state, that stuff has to be, very, very carefully added in. And I'm not saying it's not bad. I love kraut. Don't get me wrong. I haven't been able to have it. I hope someday I can, because I love that tanginess and the saltiness that it has. But yeah, I feel that you have to take care of everything else first before you put that in and get to the bottom of whatever else is going on. And the best way to do that is through organ meats. Desiccated liver is the best thing that you can take, the best thing you can take. It helps with so much of your digestion system. And so does the pancreas. Actually, if you don't like the sound of taking pancreas in a pill, then do the liver. That's just
Oh, I mean, I'll take whatever to
amazing.
peel. I don't
Yeah.
mind. Like, I mean, this is bizarre to me that all the shit's in here, but there's something to this. There has to be.
There is, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So your gut's completely healed. I mean, for the
Yeah,
most part,
for
unless
the
you
most
do
part.
something stupid that you
Exactly.
shouldn't be doing,
Exactly.
and so for people listening, like, this is super important, because gut health. Let's talk about that for a minute, because the brain and the brain gut
Connection.
connection is
Mm-hmm.
so important. Like, folks, I don't know if you really understand. And I'm sure you can break it down for us a little bit deeper. And I
Yeah,
would love for you to do that, because it's so
absolutely.
fucking important and I don't know that anybody's ever broken it down for me
Yeah.
on here.
Okay. Well, I love that. A lot of the times we say, trust your gut. That is the number one brain, because whatever goes on down in our gut is what sends signals to our brain on what it needs to do. So our true brain is our gut. And one of the things that I try and make people to understand is, okay, there is a connection there. So you think about, you're under some stress, right? So what do? You reach for food. And then when you're reaching for that food, it reacts in a way in our gut to release hormones, whether it's stress hormones, whether it's, chances are it's a stress hormone that gets released, right? Or a feel good hormone. So that stress hormone gets released. And then all of a sudden that triggers you to want to have more. So then you end up eating more, and then it causes anxiety and it causes more stress. So that it ends up just being a huge vicious cycle for us, right? So we have to somehow break that cycle. And how we break that cycle is through the fasting, right? So that's why fasting is so important. And then we also have all the other benefits of fasting, that we have So I think that like the autophagy that goes on, all that stuff of ridding the bodies of toxins, all of that stuff happens with the fasting. So fasting is definitely important, and it fits in tremendously with this gut brain connection that we have. So, a lot of people say that it's the brain talking to the gut. It's actually the other way around. So we have whatever gets released in our gut first is what sends the signals to our brain. And that's what causes a lot of our anxiety and a lot of our depression, is because some of the food choices that we have, we're not giving the brain exactly what it needs, right? So when we tell people, I see it more and more all the time, these 20-year-olds coming in with depression, they should be living the time of their lives right now at that age, not dealing with depression, not dealing with anxiety. All we have to do is up their fat, because our brain is made up of omega-3s, and the myelin sheaths are made of that too. And that's what makes our brain fire, and that's what makes our brain work. And when we up their omega-3s and we give them vitamin D, which vitamin D is a hormone, when we give them that, oh my God, they are like totally different kids, and or young adults. And they're saying, I can't believe that is such a huge change. Like that made a difference. It all comes down to taking care of our gut. We have to heal our gut first, right? So think of all that anxiety that we have. Think of all the stressors that we have, and that just eats at our stomach too. That's where all of our hormones get released, is from our stomach. So if we don't deal with that stress, kind of like what we were talking about from the beginning, if you don't deal with that stress, then it's just going to cause more problems down the road. And I say down the road, towards your brain, towards your limbs, all of that other stuff that's in there, your rest of your digestive system as well. So it's all connected. So we definitely, I always tell people, every bite counts. Doesn't matter. Like, oh, I'm just gonna have a little bite of this tortilla chip. I'm just gonna have, how many of those little bites have you let in? There's going to be, you got to look at the dam effect, right? So you keep doing that, eventually that dam's going to build up and it's just going to burst. And then it shows up somehow in our body as some kind of a disease or symptom. So it's huge. We have to take care of our guts. We have to be careful of what we put in there, because that's what causes a lot of the releases of other chemicals in our body. So it does matter. Every bite matters.
Absolutely. And also some of those bites, let's just take a piece of chocolate. Yeah. When you eat a piece of chocolate, it also fires off in your brain those oxytocin, I don't know if I think it fires oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin, and all those feel good, but it's temporary.
Right.
And it's not the right feel good.
Exactly. And that's a whole other topic of its own.
Yeah,
I do a workshop on that, food addiction, and what they've done and what the food companies have done with that. And that is a whole other discussion of its own.
Jesus Christ, yes.
Joan Eifland is amazing. She's from Stafford, I believe. She's Dr. Joan Eifland. She has these amazing videos on YouTube that you can go and watch. But she talks about food addiction. And it's funny, I do pretty much the same presentation, and I see hers and I was like, oh my gosh, it's like verbatim almost, just this research that this woman has done. And it seems I've been following her footsteps in the research too, because I've used a lot of the same things that she talks about. But yeah, it's amazing what these food companies have done to our food. And it's not just food companies, the cigarette companies, because they now own our food companies. And that happened back in the 80s. So they're really good at neuromarketing. And that's what this is. It's all about neuromarketing. We're the only country that can target kids. Everywhere else, it's against the law. So the Americans take advantage of that.
Interestingly, my father worked for Philip Morris for a long time. And what I didn't know about, I actually worked he worked for another company for a while, and that was my first job out of high school. And I didn't really understand at the time, but now I understand that, the reason people are addicted to cigarettes, the primary reason is that it's soaked in sugar. Mm-hmm. And why is that? Oh, that's because it tasted so bad before. They needed it to taste better for kids to smoke.
Exactly.
And when they started this campaign about the no smoking for the kids, guess what happened?
It went up.
The rate of kids went up, and everybody else, the rate of cigarettes went up. It was all a marketing scheme from Philip
Absolutely.
Morris,
Mm-hmm.
and it is what it is.
Yeah.
And that's the reason I think vaping right now, Kate, I think that's why they've smashed the vaping market, which have crushed businesses.
Yeah.
Because they've taken away so much from the cigarette business. What they're doing is they're going to crush the vape business, so people have to go back to cigarettes.
Oh, yeah.
Cigarettes are going to go up. Mark my words. I promise you, cigarettes are going to go up.
I guarantee they will too. Absolutely. Yeah, that's one thing that I have to give them credit for is they're really good at the marketing that they do. They're very genius, and they've hit it where it counts for us as far as being tribes. Is if we see, other people like on TV and the commercials and the billboards, everything that's out there, we see people being happy and doing it. We want that too. It's just that tribe mentality. It's as simple as that. Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's just like the perception of what is going on right now. The perception is that we're doomed. The perception is that this is going to destroy everything.
I know.
And that's just wrong. Like it's just a terrible way to look at what's going on, because that is in no shape, form, or fashion going to happen that way.
They like to use fear, and they're good at doing it. I mean, look at all this herd mentality that's going on with toilet paper. I mean, we're not losing power, so I don't get it, but whatever.
Like, what the fuck? I still, to this day, do not understand why the toilet paper was the go-to. Why? I mean, you can clean off down there in a million different ways. Toilet paper's. I actually use wipes. I don't even fucking use toilet paper, so it didn't really affect me until all the toilet paper was out, and then they took my wipes.
That's wicked funny. I'm telling you, it's
bizarre.
It is bizarre. It totally is bizarre.
It makes no sense.
No.
Like, I still I wonder who. Anyway, maybe the toilet paper companies are behind the virus.
Hey, maybe they are. Who knows? I wouldn't put it past them.
Crazy. So Kate, this has been super informative. Gosh, and we got really off on a bunch of stuff that I know really we didn't we? Intend. Yeah. So when where did we leave off with you? I'm kind of sorry. I'm kind of sorry, but I'm kind of not, because I really loved hearing this, and I think this is going to help so many people.
I think so too. No, we left off at the right spot. I mean, I'm healing, and I don't have any sights in the close future here of changing what I'm doing as far as coming off of carnivore just yet, because I'm still healing, and it's been profound already. And I feel good. I don't feel deprived. Everything seems to be great. What I'm doing next is I have signed up for, well, I didn't sign up. I'm putting together a ride in Vermont, the Vermont 100, the Route 100. It's a 200-mile ride. So I've never done a century ride before. And you get 9,000 feet in elevation over the 2 days. Because I'm breaking it up into 2 days. They usually do a big group ride in June. And I know the pace that I'm at right now, I can't do 200 in a day, because they want you to finish before dark. So what I've done is I've taken upon myself and got a group of friends together, and we're just going to do the 200, but we're going to break it up into hundreds. So the first day we're going to do 100, the second day we're going to do 100. And I'm going to do it all on carnivore. And I'm going to actually start my training on Monday, and I'm going to start putting it on Instagram and having everybody follow me to do that. So they know what I'm going to do, and they're going to see the journey, and I'll be recording or documenting along the way. Because I know in Vermont on that Route 100, there's not very good cell service. So I'll probably just those 2 days, just take pictures and write in my journal, and then I'll post it all at the end of that. So that's what's big next for me.
I'm pretty sure, Kate, you just figured out in this conversation 2 different books, maybe 3 you could write. So one is you're going to be able to do this race, and you're going to be able to talk about carnivore
Are you going to do all these writings for me? Are you going to write for me?
Well, I mean, at this point, like there's just so much information like you have to choose from. You have a book that could be this thick if you wanted to.
Right? Kate's life. Who wants to read about Kate's life?
Might be surprised.
I could write a book about that on carnivore, how to do the extreme on carnivore.
Absolutely, because it's a thing now, and a lot of people are Joe Rogan. That's what he's doing.
Yeah, he joined the January challenge with Sean Baker.
But I don't know that is he still doing it?
I think he still is. Yeah, I think he's still doing it. There's a meatrx.com.
Sean told me about it.
Yeah, so he started that in the beginning of the year to start the carnivore month. But it's ongoing. Everybody's in there. So it's just great to see and to hear that people are joining all the time. And I'm not saying that carnivore is for everybody, but I do believe that there's a percentage of us that has those autoimmune that I feel will benefit from it. And it's your choice if you want to do it for the rest of your life or not. And if you're going to do it for the rest of your life, there's a right way to do it. There's also a wrong way to do it. So I would say do your research before you do it, or get someone to help you do it, because you don't want to mess with that. That's information you're giving your body. Nutrition is information, and you want to make sure you're giving it the right stuff that it needs. So, yeah.
All right. Well, Kate, I think we've come to a place where we can wrap up. But on the tail of what you just said, you are the perfect person for someone to find. So.
Yes.
Let us know everywhere once people hear this conversation and they want to find Kate, where do they find you?
You can find me on social media platforms of Facebook and Instagram. And my handle there is K8 for Wellness. That's the letter K, the number 8, the number 4 Wellness. And my website's the same exact handle. It's www.k8forwellness.com. And that's the letter K, the number 8, the number 4 wellness.com.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic. You're very welcome. Thank you so much. You have given me personally so much information today.
Awesome.
That I'm so excited because now my wife is going to fucking kill me because I go because I start and I do shit like this and then I switch over to vegetarian. And dude, I'm not jumping on the train anymore with you. I'm not changing. I'm sticking with what I'm doing. Oh my God, it drives her nuts.
That's awesome.
So, Kate, thank you so much. And I can't wait for this to come out and for you to help some other people and hopefully some 14-year-old girls that get pregnant, because I know they're out there and I know they would love to hear that, you know what, I was there, and meaning you, to say I was there and I overcame all the obstacles that you think you're going to have. And I have successfully become a good mother, a great wife, and, a happy person. And I feel good. And I, have done all these things, and I still had a child at 14. So you can do it too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would love to help that person if they need it.
Well, you're the perfect person to do that. Kate, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Have an awesome day.
Bye.